both you and I before the show sort of did the juggling, the mathematically juggling of different results and the way it could turn out. And imagine if what's that GIF with the guy and the calculation from I think it's from Hangover, right?
Oh
The
yeah.
poker game. So that was us trying to figure out who's going to go down, who's going to stay up. I get this asked all the time, right? Who do you think is going to go down? I'm like, Stefan, I have no idea, right? What do I know? I can just tell you that based on the results that we had this weekend, Stuttgart looked like the great winner to me, and boy, did they have a fantastic performance with that 4-1 win over Mainz that catapults them out of the relegation zone entirely, right? The other takeaway I had, Dortmund's win over Augsburg kind of puts them into dangerous waters in the final match day. Schalke's point, okay, I think that's going to hurt them, but at the same time, that's still a point that could be very valuable. We now know Hertha are gone. Schalke, I think we predicted this from happening, that it would happen. So that there's no huge surprise here. But Stefan, okay, Augsburg are sort of in it, but they have a dead rubber match against Gladbach, right? So I think we essentially, it comes down to Stuttgart, Bochum, or Schalke, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I watched the Schalke game, and you know, I was chatting to someone on Twitter about this because I was just basically saying, I was tweeting it with such exuberance and delight when Schalke scored that, someone was responded saying, when they went down a few years ago, I didn't feel too bad because, the club was mismanaged.
Mm,
They looked like a financial kind of mess. They looked like a sleeping giant. They just kind of stumbled and fell. He's like, I didn't have much sympathy for them, but now I can't help but get behind this team, and I completely agree with them.
yeah.
Been watching Schalke for the last 5 or 6 weeks now, almost, religiously, and this weekend's game against Frankfurt was just another example that just kind of you can't help but endear yourself to this team. They score. Teroda scores a great goal in the first minute of the game, like 55 seconds, in his final home game as a Schalke
Mm.
player, which is just, you know, really quite touching actually. Now, Frankfurt did manage to pull himself back into this game. I feel quite bad for Schalke in the sense that, Schwolo in goals, he's replacing the injured Farman, and I don't know if you saw Kamada's goal, but it was a shot from outside the box. It just went right through the goalkeeper's hands.
Mm.
Complete clanger from a goalkeeper who, admittedly kind of has some history with this. Tuta then scores in the second half, and you kind of think, well, that's it. Frankfurt managed to pull it around. They've got to go on and win this game, and Schalke are really in trouble. But then Poulter scores in the 85th minute, and a tremendous goal. And I don't know, there's just this never say die attitude from Schalke, especially under Rice took over the club. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago in terms of, I don't have the stats to hand because I haven't updated them, but I remember maybe 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago, I kind of checked what the Bundesliga table would look like since Thomas Rice came into the team. And, Schalke would be sitting 10th or 11th,
Mm.
So they have really put on a strong showing. Actually, in the last 10 match days, they'd be 12th in the league tables. There you go. The last 5 match days, would be ninth. So they are crawling. They're grasping and crawling at everything they can get. And they go into that final match day against an RB Leipzig team who've got nothing to play for.
Yeah.
Um, I don't. I'm not entirely sure what they can hope for, and I think they basically need Stuttgart and Bochum to lose because their goal difference is such that even if they get up into 34 points, I think they're still behind Augsburg on goal difference.
Hmm.
So they basically need Bochum and Stuttgart to lose, which isn't beyond the realms of possibility because Bochum have got playing a very difficult
Or
Leverkusen team
draw.
who,
Draw
yeah,
would be
or
draw would do you too. Yeah.
yeah. So there's still plenty to play for, and I'm not a Schalke fan. I've never been a Schalke fan, but I can't help but root for this team. I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting if people let us know in the comments what they think. But I've just found myself really rooting for this team right now.
Yeah. So here's my worries. Stuttgart, when it comes to Schalke. Stuttgart are playing a dead rubber against Hoffenheim, right? Hoffenheim on the beach. Um, the upside is Schalke playing Leipzig, Leipzig on the beach, drinking their Red Bull. Although that's not 100% true because they have a German Cup final to play, right? But so, okay, that actually makes it even worse for Bochum because Schalke are playing a Leipzig side that doesn't want to that's essentially going to experiment, right? Because they have to replace Guardiol in defense. And then they're probably going to rotate a few players to make sure that the week after they're match fit for a really big game in Berlin against Frankfurt. So Stuttgart, they play pretty much a dead rubber. Schalke, big opportunity to get maybe 3 points against Leipzig. So it really then comes down to me what's going to happen in that Bochum game. And this is where it's juicy because Bochum are playing a Leverkusen side who need a win to guarantee that they finish sixth, which could, depending on how the German Cup final ends, be either a Europa League spot or Conference League spot, right? They're obviously hoping it's a Europa League spot, right? But what I'm saying is Leverkusen will have to win their match. And I think in terms of quality, they're probably going to beat Bochum. So I think that makes it, I kind of feel it makes it between those three sides. Yes, Augsburg, if certain things go a certain way, they could still end up in the relegation playoff spot, right? If they lose to Gladbach, a Gladbach side that did steal 2 points from Leverkusen on the weekend, coming back from a 2-0 deficit. There was some life in that team yet, right? So curious to see how that's going to end. I think Gladbach too, they're saying goodbye to a bunch of players in their final home match. So they maybe want to win that game, right? But I just feel that I think it's going to be between Bochum and Schalke is sort of my feeling here on where who's going to go down directly and who's maybe in that playoff relegation spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess if you're Schalke, you'll probably you'll take that playoff spot right now, wouldn't you? Because
Against
you're
HSV.
for well, having working with a lot of people in Hamburg, I know fine well just how useless Hamburg have been recently. And yeah, as I said, Schalke have basically been one of the top 10 teams in the Bundesliga over the last 2 or 3 months. So on current form, you would think that they would fancy themselves against just about any team in this Zweite Bundesliga. Maybe Stuttgart and Bochum would too. And this is the really interesting aspect to why the relegation race has been so good. If you kind of look at the form table, these teams at the bottom of the table have actually been picking up a lot of points recently,
Yeah.
Like the likes of Schalke, Bochum, Stuttgart, over the course of the last 10 games are 10th, 11th, and 12th in the form table. Gladbach have picked up fewer points, Mainz, Frankfurt, Augsburg, Bremen, of course, Hertha are still bottom, but it's, what's kind of made this kind of relegation race so interesting is that these bottom two or three sides, specifically Stuttgart, Bochum, and Schalke, have all been basically, they're not winning every week, but they're picking up points every
Yeah.
week. But because the three of them continue to pick up points together, they can't pull away from each other. And that's why they're in this situation where, it's going to come down to the last match days. So it's going to be fantastic. I can't wait for it. There'll be tears depending on who goes down, I suppose. But yeah, I think any of those three teams would obviously take 16th over 17th, goes without saying. But I think they'd all kind of quietly think they could fancy themselves in that playoff spot as well. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, sooner or later, Hamburg are gonna go up, right?
But are they though? Are they?
I don't know if I want to play that Russian roulette though. I've been in the relegation playoffs with my team, and it's not fun. I don't want to take that chance, but someone will have to. I think maybe if you finish 16th, we kind of hope that Heidenheim still slip into that third spot somehow, right? The second division. You look at the final match day there. Let me just pull that up because like the final match day in the second division is actually quite interesting as well. And Hamburg and Heidenheim are just 1 point apart, if I'm correct. So and I think they both have very easy to win games. I looked at this morning. It was Heidenheim. I think we're playing. I know Hamburg is playing Sandhausen away. So yeah, it's. I don't know. I just don't know if I want to do that. Here, there it is, the match day. Let me just get that up. I'm doing this live as we speak. Um, Here it is. So Sandhausen, Hamburg is in Sandhausen, who are already relegated to the third division. And then Heidenheim have Jan Regensburg away, who are technically pretty much relegated already too. Probably on goal differential. So yeah, it does look like it's going to be HSV on that third spot. Um, yeah, I don't know. Either way, Stefan, I think we're obviously going to cover the relegation playoff matches, right? So don't worry, we're gonna stay tuned. I'm probably going to be at both of them, depending on geography, especially if it's in Hamburg, because I'm actually in the office in Hamburg that week, so I will get to see it live this year. The tears and the drama and everything that involves a relegation playoff, a match. But I think it's gonna. I mean, it's totally gonna come down to the wire for the next 2 weeks.